Welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Gary Crosby, and today I'm with Mark McKeown. He's a serial entrepreneur, and I'll let him tell you all about that. Mark, thanks for spending some time with me today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Great. So just a little bit of context before we start then. Tell us what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Yeah, I'm currently running two businesses. One is a manufacturing design business for retail, and we're based in Sandy, Bedfordshire. We've got our own factory and studio space, and we operate both businesses from that location, basically. So we're basically a manufacturing business with project management, and we work on an end-to-end basis where we provide the design, the building, the implementation, and it's mainly in the retail space. So I'm talking about fixtures for shops. I use an analogy of like a forecourt where you walk in and pay for your petrol. You look left and right. There's displays with chewing gum or cans of Coke or energy drinks, or we design and manufacture those.
Okay. And what are you most proud of in that regard? Give me an example of a thing that you've done and designed where you've stood back and thought, that is absolutely fantastic. I mean, they probably all are, but one that might stand out for you.
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of work for Nike where they send out creative from the States, and you have to then turn it into something in reality. So there's a couple of 2 or 3 projects where we really didn't think we were going to really create what they wanted. One was a full-size Airfix model kit where where you snap out the parts of an aeroplane that you make. I mean, kids probably don't do them these days, but we had to do that with a mannequin in place in its sports gear, and it was 3 meters high by 2 meters wide, and it was trying to create the same visual imagery that they wanted to get in store, which we managed, and it was great. We've got other projects. We've done bits for Sony. Where we've produced displays which feed the product forward and calling it always full. Yeah, that's I suppose that's what keeps me going in this industry, because it's very everything's ever changing, evolving, and especially at the moment, retail is in a place where it's really in somewhere where it's not been before, and it's trying to get footfall back is tricky, but there's always ways around it, and with technology and everything that exists and people on social media and things, you just tie that in, and it brings the whole shopper journey through. But also it means that I'm having to diversify. I have a factory. I also have a studio for design, and I have to keep that resource busy. I've got obviously mouths to feed and all the rest of it. So that's hence why we're sort of looking at other businesses as well.
Okay. I mean, the technology angle is quite interesting. I do remember speaking a couple of years ago to somebody who was in marketing and was talking about cameras behind screens that look at, customer sentiment, and the message that gets displayed on the screen is different. How's technology affecting your sector?
Well, I think we're coming away from what used to just be screens with video content on it. It's now AI, and also artificial intelligence and virtual reality, where they're trying to engage clients by saying, this is what you will look like in these clothes, etc. And that's been going on for a number of years, but it's taken quite a while to embed in your standard retail sort of architecture. But that's where technology is going, and I think it's very data driven. Everyone's after data. We're providing data through whatever it is, Tesco Club Card or whatever your shopper movements. And I think what retailers are trying to do now is predict what people are wanting much more, rather than just putting something out there. So, and obviously there is a question of what stock they carry. They've obviously, the online channel means that people are much more ready to walk into somewhere and do price checks and everything else. So they have to react quickly to all that. So technology plays a massive part in the shopper journey, as we call it. So.
And I remember there was something recently about beacons and things, so that they, you have an app on your phone, and as you walk past somewhere, it recognizes who you are and says you come in because the trainers you've been looking at online are now, 50% off in the sale. Do you get involved in that sort of thing?
We haven't as yet. It's the NFC technology has been around for years. It just hasn't. I think probably GDPR came in and has given that one a bit of a roadblock, because you're not meant to be using people's data like that. So if I'm honest, it's not something that has come up recently. I thought it would take over. I thought everyone would walk into a shop and you'd go, "Hello, Mark," or "Hello, Gary."
Yes.
You last shopped here in 19, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It is something that people are looking at and people are trying to use more. But I think there's quite a lot of restrictions in place currently.
Mm, mm. And taking you back to the beginning of the companies that you founded and things like that,
Yeah.
the entrepreneurial spark, what was it that made you decide that, being an employee was not right for you, and that actually it was time for you to do this yourself?
I was just in my 20s, not really enjoying my job because I was in the corporate world, and they weren't that interested in making money. They were just really interested in keeping shareholders happy, which there is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got very despondent about it, and I thought, well, if I don't do something now, I'll never do it. And if it doesn't work out, I find a job somewhere. So I literally took a loan out on my mortgage. Told my mortgage company that I was going to do some home improvements, and in the days that you could do that, you probably can't get away with that now. But I remember quite clearly it was £60,000. Went and got a lease on a factory space, and just started putting machines into it, and brought over 2 jobs from an existing client of mine, and thought, well, if I'll give it a go. They were happy to move with me, and I'd never looked back from that point, really. So it was the wanting to be in charge of my own destiny, and I think that's what clinched it for me. I just felt like I was going through the motions, and when you suddenly think yourself, if I carry on doing this for much longer, I'm going to be in a state of depression. It's not worth it, not at that age. So
that's a great call. Really. That's a great lesson there. Exactly. I mean, my coaching business is 5 years old. I absolutely guarantee I'm completely unemployable now, having tasted that sense of being in control of your own destiny. You know what I mean? That's interesting. So you've been going for a while, and what I see in my day-to-day coaching is that business success is a combination of many different factors. What's it been for you? What are the key factors from your perspective that have led to this longevity in business?
I think I always come back to just keeping an eye on the cash, because so many businesses I know and friends and sort of colleagues, if you run out of cash, you've got nowhere to go. And I've always made sure I've kept a buffer in terms of cash in the bank for those times like COVID, and everything else where these things that happen unexpectedly. And also, I have learned in the peaks and troughs of business coming in is that you need cash to fund your ongoing business. It's all very well getting a massive order, but you've got to fund that. And especially when payment terms seem to be drifting at the moment, and it's just difficult to keep an eye on it. If you've at least got something you can afford to fund it for a month or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, then I think that has probably the biggest thing that has kept us going in the short term. Because we moved into our second factory in Sandy in 2008, and it was right at the start of the recession. So I'd done a really nice big job for Sony, and I got a bit of cash in the bank. So I went and put a deposit down on a laser, which was 235,000 at the time. And this was installed in the factory, and we were all guns blazing. Yeah, this is going to be fantastic. And literally within weeks, the tumbleweed was passing through by the door, and all the orders were cancelled, and we were in that. So that was a real learning curve for me, where you suddenly rein everything in. Unfortunately, we do live quite leanly in terms of the business. We're not over. We haven't got too many people, and we had understandable landlords at the time and all the rest of it. But that learning, you soon revert back to it when you get COVID situation where you don't know if the government's going to step in. I mean, obviously they did in the end, but that was unprecedented. We didn't know what was going to happen, did we? Any of us? So from that point of view, they still don't know what they were doing now, I don't think. But that was one of the things which sort of I think I would say just spending within your means. It's a tricky one, and also I'd take as much. Interest rates were low. So in terms of borrowing, I made sure I could pay the borrowing back, but I was using that as a big leverage for the business, really. I mean, buying a laser, I literally put 23,000 down on it and paid the rest over 5 years. But it did mean that I had a £4.5 grand payment every month going out, which I had to find from somewhere. So that soon spurs you on in terms of getting work. There's no question.
It does. It does.
It's sort of, yeah.
Cash is king is the business lesson that I think that I've learned over the last 5 years. In all of my clients' businesses, it's very easy to run out of cash. So the buffer that you talk about, I mean, that's a perfect lesson for anybody starting up in business. I just thinking about the people in business. I mean, what kind of leader would you say you were?
Good question. I try and lead by example and be as empathetic as I possibly can, really, because it's the running a business and being a manager now is changing quite dramatically in what you could or couldn't do, or can or can't do now, in terms of how you run your business and run your management team. So it's I just work on the basis of trying to bring people in terms of having the conversations, making the decisions as a joint thing to people, rather than being dictatorial about anything or autocratic about it. I just at least try and get other people to own decisions. But you soon learn when it's your own business that people just want you to make the decision a lot of the time anyway. so
there is a bit of that
on them, really.
Yeah.
But,
what do you think the secret is to sorry, go ahead.
No, well, the secret is to a happy business, or
to a high performing team, I was going to say, but let's go with happy business. Because I think there are different people want different things from their employment. How do you keep the team happy?
Yeah, I just think it's information and keeping them abreast of where the business is going, and try and show that there is some direction as well, because it's always tricky to as soon as it feels like a rudderless ship, then everything sort of starts to drift, I think. So it's a question of saying, this is the focus, this is what we're doing, we're dealing with this issue by doing this. And I think that helps. And also is trying to be honest about the money side of it as well, really, and just sort of saying, as you can tell, we're not very busy, we haven't got a lot of money coming in at the moment, but when we do have, and trying to sort of remember that time and use that, and that's something I do think about a lot, because I do want to be fair in terms of everything that we do, because everyone, they're working hard, so why not reward it, really?
Yeah, it's interesting that I mean, you mentioned the strategy, the vision, where the business is going, and I sometimes find that the small business owners that I coach they think that's a bit corporate. So I'm curious as to how you actually in the real world explain to your team what the vision is. Do you have a method for that?
No, not a good enough method anyway. I mean, in the times that we have done stuff, I'll talk, because there's not many of us, so there's only 8 or 10 in the team. So it's very easy to discuss what's going on with people on a sort of weekly basis, anyways. But that is one thing I do need to do better, is to formalize it, because it is what people want to know. So when we've had particularly difficult times, then I will have put something in writing and saying, this is where we are at the moment. You don't need to worry. I'm looking at reviewing this and this in 3 to 6 months or whatever. But I do realize I'm not good at the formal corporate stuff, but I do feel it's important that people know what's going on. So I do it more verbally, really, just talking independently to people.
And taking that sort of vision to the next step, looking at the companies that you've got now, what's next? What are you looking to achieve in those companies over the next few years?
I want them to gain enough momentum that they that we don't have that concern of what's happening next month, and so I want to develop personally, I want to develop longer contracts in place, which just takes longer to develop. And I've been doing what I've been doing for so many years that we haven't managed to get to that point yet. So that's what I strive for, is because it's that constant cycle of where's the work coming from, to I've got too much work now, how am I going to get it done? And we're constantly going round that circle. It would be nice to relieve that aspect a little bit.
Got it.
Pressure.
Got it. Yeah. A challenge for any business that's project based. You know, it's lovely if you've got a nice steady flow of recurring revenue
Yeah.
from various sources, but if you're just moving, you know, I've got construction clients who move from one project to the next, and whilst there's always been business there, it doesn't stop you from worrying about whether there's business coming. I get that. I get that. And looking at the obstacles out there, the industry's changing, as you say, people are shopping online and the retail spaces are changing rapidly. What kind of obstacles have you can you see in front of you for your companies?
On the retail side, it's budget more than anything else, and people's ability to spend money on physical equipment basically is what we work in. And there's a big environmental sustainability issue at the moment with using plastics and stuff. We're fundamentally a metal manufacturer, so metal is quite ironically sustainable because it's you know, cardboard and everything. It goes in the bin after a few weeks, whereas this will last a long time. So it's trying to get people to believe in it and invest in it. And I think what I'm finding with a lot of brands is they don't have many long-term views on their budgets, so that everything is short-term. So when budgets get cut or interest rates go up or inflation is still high, they'll switch to online or different platforms rather than investing more money in something that is longer lasting. Something that some of the brands are very good at, and people like Nike are good at doing that aspect. They will stick with it, and the strongest will survive on that basis. But what it means is also I have to diversify and I have to be looking at other opportunities. Hence why we've taken the business not to be so reliant on the retail side, and now we're looking at more architectural work. And this is it brings me to the other business, which is called Cambridge Core 10, which is using a Core 10 material, which you will have seen, but maybe not known what it is. It's a steel, but it's got it rusts and gives you a rust patina, but then stops rusting and it seals itself up, and then it will last for anything between 20 and 50 years. Wow. It's a material that was designed by the Americans, and they built train carriages, and they still build sea containers from the material. So if you used a standard mild steel and you put it outside, within probably 12 months, you'll start to see pinholes going through it, and it will deteriorate, it will delaminate, and within probably 18 months, it won't even be there. Core 10, you put it outside, it goes a rusty sort of patina, so and it takes about a year to go off properly. But after that point, it's completely no maintenance on it at all, no painting required, and it's something that people like as a contrast in terms of materials. So architecturally, it's very popular in Europe, in Spain, France, obviously in Australia, New Zealand, and America. Where the UK is about 5 years behind, as usual, with this, and architects are planning this into a lot of their projects at the moment. We've got 3 self builds on the go at the moment with people who are cladding the outside of their building in it. One of them is planning to be on Grand Designs. They've started filming, and they're going to come in and film the manufacturing of it, I think, as well, in our factory. So it's a material that, I suppose, from my point of view, it keeps the interest going. It gets me excited. It's something new, something different. I was on site this morning, hence my dress, on a site where we've done a koi fish pond in Core 10, which is being welded up now, and we're working with a garden designer, and that material is being used all over his garden. He's got sculptures and things like that going on as well. So we're getting involved in using that material, and fundamentally it is a mild steel material. It works, it bends, it welds like mild steel does, but it just is a different finish. So you have to be a little bit careful about how you use it with other materials, but ultimately and what we've done is we've capitalized on the fact that people don't know where to go for Core 10. So if someone specifies Core 10 in an architect's design, they'll just Google it, and a lot of the time they're just coming up with our name, which is fantastic. So.
That is good. That's good. So that presents me. I'm looking at Mark, the human being, and I'm thinking, that we've got 2 companies, one that's been going for a very long time, facing some unique challenges as retailers drawing their budgets and shoppers shop in a different way. Then we've got an exciting technology company effectively using this material in a way that it's not being used. Looking at Mark himself over the next few years, how will you have to develop and change as the leader in your businesses?
I think it's the evolution of how people work as well. I mean, my kids are in that world of working the hybrid model, 3 days at home, 2 days in the office type of thing, or whatever it is. And that from a manufacturing perspective, most of my people are working on the tools, so they have to be physically in place. That is not normal these days. It's for the majority of my friends, family, and other people, it is a question. Well, they don't go into the office much, and don't go to a place. So that is definitely a challenge where it becomes difficult to get hold of the skill level that you need, because people aren't coming through the ranks, learning these skills, wanting to turn up somewhere 5 days a week. And so that's something where we have to deal with it. And I actually don't know how you deal with it, because it's a common thread throughout a lot of businesses where struggling to employ people. It's the biggest problem we've got at the moment. And there is main reasons behind that is the market's very good. People are paying a lot of money, and then when you actually come to advertise for someone with certain skills, you can't find them. I mean, I advertise for welders on something like Indeed, and Indeed.com, that is, and 75% of them are from overseas. And I've said quite clearly you have to turn up and come. Oh yeah, we'll relocate. We'll come over. It's not as simple as that, because the job isn't, it doesn't warrant someone uplifting their roots and coming over and working in the UK. But that's the way that they're applying for these things. It's a tricky scenario.
So there's a challenge there for Mark to become a great recruiter, and to work out how to bring people into the business. You mentioned earlier on, I think you said that they always come to you for the final decision. Is there any sense that you're looking to build a team that would potentially be less reliant on you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've got great people working for me, and I do need to build that layer underneath. I mean, I've been seeing business mentors for years, and one of the sort of takeouts from that I always have is that it's very easy for someone like Gary, you, to sit there and say you need to give yourself a helicopter view of your business, because that is basically what you need to do. Because I'm basically wrapped up in the day-to-day on most of the time that I'm in work. Whereas if you can actually take a view above your business and a more holistic view, then you'll make better decisions. And I know that it's getting to that point really for me. So.
It's not as easy as it sounds. I completely accept that. I've got two coaches who tell me that too.
I mean, it's true, and whatever anyone, it's the truest thing a coach could ever say to you, because it's very easy for someone else to look in on someone else's business and say, you know what you need to do? You need to give yourself a day a week out of the office. You need to be, just concentrating on. And yes, I know I do, and it all becomes of which way you get pulled. I'm looking at non-exec roles, and I'm doing one. It's more of a sales consultant rather than a non-exec role. It developed into, but in another business local to me, and it's very interesting because you see the same things happen in every business, and I'm sitting there thinking, this has happened to me so many times.
Yes.
This is happening to me on a daily basis, and you're trying to tell someone as a consultant or as a coach to say what you really need to do, and it feels a bit ironic, really, when I'm telling someone what I should be doing as well, really. So, yeah.
So let's just go back to the Corten company. That was a startup of what, 5-6 years ago?
No, we only started it 18 months ago, probably.
Sorry, I was thinking about the other one, the Circa one. Yeah.
Oh, the other business, Circa. The other. There was another business we were working, which was a coming together of 3 people. One of which was a client. One was a creative director who wanted to leave a business, and myself as a sort of manufacturer, I suppose, part of it. And it was great. It was we provided exactly what we did. A lot of work for Axel Nobel, who own a lot of brands, including Dulux and Saddling, and various different Dux back paint and things. And we delivered exactly what we planned. We wanted to do. They were working with creative agencies to give them the blue sky look of what our brand was going to be, and then we would then deliver that, and then implement it across mainly B&Q and Homebase. So that was that business. But the reason it ended up petering out was that one of our main clients was AXO, and they decided to rationalize their supply base down from about 15 to 2, and they're based in Holland, and we just weren't big enough to handle the work that that they couldn't. It wasn't within their ability to give us the work, because it would have been too risky for them to give that much work to us. They needed someone who was turning over 20-30 million pound, really. So.
And that's interesting for me, because you've got the success of the two companies. You've got that company where changes happened in the marketplace, external factors came to play. I guess for all business owners, there's a moment when you have to accept that something isn't going to continue. Is there any lesson that you learned from there that you would want to share with viewers?
I didn't believe it at the time when they said this is what we're going through. 3 of us were it was a partnership of 3 people, and I remember quite clearly. I said, "Oh, it's one of those things. They say this, but they won't actually get what they want out of it, and I'm sure they'll end up dealing with us." And one of the other chaps said, "No, I think this is going to happen." And the third was like, "I don't know, but I'll just go with it," sort of thing. So it was one of these situations where I think had I believed it, would I have acted any differently? I wouldn't have been able to have controlled it, so probably not. I mean, the other option was to be bringing someone else in, a bigger company in, to be the front, to head it up, I suppose, to make sure you win the work. But we weren't able to do that. And I think it was a decision made that they knew who they were going to use from head office in Holland. So I think it was a decision already made. So I think if I went through the whole process again, I would take it more seriously. I didn't take it seriously enough at the time.
Right, that's a great lesson as well, about perceptions and about reading people and understanding where they're coming from.
Well, sometimes there are a number of times where people say they're going to do something but don't, and that for me is the majority of time, when they revert back to what they know works and stuff. But this is a case of it's been said from up high, this has got to happen, so sorry, this is going to happen. Yeah.
So, I mean, I could talk for hours, but we don't have that much time. I'm just wondering if there's anything, and particularly on the new company, that's coming up that you want to share with the viewers before we wrap up. No,
it's exciting. I think for me, it just keeps that sort of the energy that I need to keep going. It's just finding something new. We're in a new sector, which like we're going to the Chelsea Flower Show, where some of our work is going to be there, that we've produced for people, and looking at whether we exhibit there in the future, and also there's a lot of the inquiries that we're getting are from sort of people with a bit of money, and they're happy to spend on decent stuff, and that's the market I want to be in. That's we deal with a lot of different clients, some of which are just literally penny pinching the whole time, and then you get the other side of it where it's nice to produce something you're really proud of, that the cost isn't so much of a consideration. It doesn't happen that often to me, but I think that's probably the excitement of the new business, where it's the range of stuff that you can produce, and people say, "Oh, can you do that for us?" And you'll go, "Yeah, no problem," because we use the same facilities. We've got a CAD department where everything's produced on SolidWorks, and that whatever we're doing, whether it's retail, whether it's the core 10 business, everything goes through that sort of funnel, so that we can put it onto our machine. So as long as we can keep using that, it's great. And so that's the bit for the future for me, I think, really keeping that excitement going.
Brilliant. No, it sounds really good. Mark, it's a great story, and I can pick 3 or 4 really good lessons out of that from what the journey you've been through, that business owners could benefit from. So again, let me just say thank you very much indeed for spending some time with me today.
My pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Hopefully catch up soon.
Great.